It was plain eerie to watch them lower the flag as dusk and silence returned to the Capitol Dome this evening. Eerier still to go back to approximately 3:40 p.m. and to see what was happening inside the building. A California congressman holding a press conference on health care. A Mississippi congressman heaping praise on a home state choral group.
The University of Mississippi concert singers won top honors last week at the World...
None of them aware that while they talked inside, this was going on outside.
The gunman is down and we have one officer. Is that correct?
We walked in, my wife opened the door.
And I
She was a few minutes ahead of us, and there was a guy in the doorway. There was an entranceway where the police officers were, and he just started shooting everybody.
It was shock. It was confusion.
And I mean, you just see your whole life, you know, flash in front of you. So I just started praying, and
it was uncertainty over just what had happened.
We didn't know what happened to you. You were right near the line of fire. And I tried to run back and get you, and the man said you could not go back in there. I was trying desperately to get to you. I'm so glad you're safe.
As you might imagine, police officers are not, if they know information, they're not saying.
Nightline producer Catherine Cross, by now broadcasting live from a cell phone, had been taping an interview across the street.
What I saw were people coming out of the Capitol. At first, I saw a man holding a child, and I thought the child was hurt.
He was running?
He was running as far away from the Capitol. And then when I looked back, there were more people coming out of the doors. I ran over to see what the problem was, and that's when I heard from all sorts of different sources. He was shooting, there's a gun, there's a gunman.
It was definitely gunshots.
We saw a lot of officers running.
We understand there's one officer down, as far as I know. That's the only casualty.
Bathroom.
One officer.
And we stayed there until they come and let us out.
We thought it was an air conditioner that had blown or something, and then when the second shot went off, that's when we all started running.
We're missing my grandson's wife and baby right now. We can't find them.
She's probably hiding somewhere, Daddy.
One little boy saw all of it.
And then I looked behind the pillar a little bit, and I saw someone shooting.
Can I take you to somebody and you can tell them your story? Would it be okay with Mom? Because it would help us out a lot. And we can have somebody talk to him. Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
yes,
just not no reporters and all that.
4:02 p.m. Casualties are now certain as a helicopter lifts a wounded person from the scene. 4:38 p.m. Nearly an hour after the shooting, the House discussion adjourns as though nothing unusual was going on outside.
I caught what seemed to be maybe a scuffle or someone kind of running through the entrance, which is on the east side, east front.
4:44 p.m. An interview with a solid eyewitness.
Immediately following the little, again, scuffle, one gunshot went off. Startled us, myself and two other co-workers.
A man who works in a kiosk inside the Capitol building. The shooting happened right before his eyes.
From that point on, of course, everybody dropped to the floor. Now we're in a display area where we have a souvenir stand, and I could see through my display cases. And at that point, I could see the actual shooting going on between the policemen. But by this time, the perpetrator had gone into an area that is near Tom Delaney's office.
4:50 p.m. The first official word, a sergeant in the Capitol Police Force.
It appears we had a gunman enter the building and exchange gunfire with U.S. Capitol police officers who were on duty at that time. 2 U.S. Capitol police officers were hit by the gunfire. They've been transported to MedStar. The suspect was subsequently shot also. He's been transported to the hospital. In addition to the 2 officers and the suspect, we had 1 civilian who was injured by the gunfire.
By now, this basic scenario was emerging. Though the Capitol is one of the nation's most heavily guarded buildings, surrounded by roadblocks and its own security forces, by design it is open to public foot traffic. Apparently, the gunman mingled with tourists and approached the Capitol from the east side. He entered by what is called the document door, an entrance that members of Congress share with members of the public. He exchanged gunfire with security officers. He ran for the offices of Congressman Tom DeLay, where there was more gunfire.
When you hear gunshots going off like that, you don't know what to do, and I ran towards the gunshots, but I saw my staff coming towards me. And there's 2 women in my outside office, and I grabbed them and another staffer, and we ran into my bathroom off of my office and locked the door and tried. I have a cell phone on my hip, and we tried to call the Capitol Police, but unfortunately in the bathroom I got no signal.
6:15 p.m. A spokesman for George Washington Hospital has an update on the wounded civilian, Angela Dickerson, aged 24.
She is in serious condition. She has 2 wounds from gunshot, 1 facial and 1 shoulder.
6:30 p.m. The worst news of the day.
At this time, it's my sad duty to announce that both United States Capitol police officers have been declared dead at the hospitals. Both United States Capitol police officers were killed in the line of duty. The officers identified as Officer Jacob Chestnut, who's an 18-year veteran of the United States Capitol Police who was assigned to the Capitol Division. The other officer is Special Agent John Gibson, who's an 8-year veteran of U.S. Capitol Police assigned to the Dignitary Protection Division.
And testimonials to the men who died.
They responded as they were trained to respond, without hesitation and courageously. And but for their actions, we may have lost many more visitors to the Capitol, workers in the Capitol, and representatives of the people of this country.
We owe them a lot, and it's very humbling when somebody loses their life in protecting yours.
Meanwhile, details began to emerge about the man police say is their suspect, Russell Weston, a 41-year-old from Montana. Weston survived his wounds. This evening, once they lowered the flag, they immediately raised it again, halfway, and left it there. A sign of mourning for the men who died under the dome, and a sense of loss that one more place in America now feels unsafe. I'm John Donvan for Nightline in Washington.
Certainly the greatest mystery in all this is Russell Weston, that man accused of the attack. Who is he? Why did he allegedly walk into the Capitol building with a .38 caliber handgun and begin firing? Nightline's Michelle McQueen is here with us with that story, and you've been learning some things.
Yes, Forrest, but not a whole lot. Law enforcement officials said earlier today that Weston had been investigated for making threats against the president beginning in the spring of 1996. ABC's Brian Ross has been told by a federal law enforcement source that Weston was a frequent writer of indirect threats against the president that were nevertheless serious enough to warrant an interview by the Secret Service. The source said Weston considered himself an oppressed white man and believed that the government was corrupt and favored minorities. As John Donvan told us, Weston is 41 years old. He was raised in Valmeyer, Illinois, near St. Louis, where family friends tell us he was known as Rusty. But in recent years, he was also spending time in a cabin in Helena, Montana, where he had some trouble with the law. He was arrested in 1991 on a charge of selling a dangerous drug, but the charges were later dropped. It is a cliche, but he does seem to have been a loner. Few of his Montana neighbors seem to know him in the kind of town where people tend to know each other. But one neighbor told the Associated Press that Mr. Weston believed that the government was using his satellite dish to spy on him. And the Miami Herald reported that a man who identified himself as Weston's father told them that his son believed the government had planted mines on his Montana property. The father also told the Herald that he had ordered his son out of the house last Thursday after he shot a number of cats with a shotgun. The father also told the Herald that his own handgun, a Smith & Wesson .38, was missing. Law enforcement officials told ABC News that a .38 was used in today's shooting. Law enforcement officials are also believed to be interviewing family members right now. The neighborhood where the family lives has been cordoned off. We were also able to speak with a number of high school acquaintances of Mr. Weston's. Among them was Gary Baum, who told us that Mr. Weston was an average teenager in their small high school, except that he sent an angry, expletive-filled letter declining the invitation to attend a high school reunion a few years ago. Tonight, Mr. Weston is recovering at a Washington hospital from gunshot wounds to his legs and abdomen that he received during the gun battle. He underwent 4 hours of surgery and is in stable condition. He's expected to be charged tomorrow and could be facing the death penalty in connection with the deaths of the 2 federal officers. Forrest?
Well, small pieces of information that at least suggest an angry and disturbed young man. Thanks very much, Michelle.